So there's no UFC for 6 weeks, so this is the sort of content you guys are going to be getting out of me for the next couple of weeks. Love it or hate it, you can tell there's no card. So we're going to be breaking down evil people as UFC fighters. Now, what does this mean? This means I'm just going to rank out how I think these evil people would do is if they devoted their time instead of evil acts to training to become a UFC fighter. These are the categories. We have a champion, so obviously that's self-explanatory. They become a champion. They ranked, which is also pretty obvious what that means. It means they become a champion. The journeyman is obviously someone who just win ones, lose one. Has a respectable career in the UFC, but never makes it to like the ranked level. Then we got cut within a year, just someone who maybe wins a fight and they lose their next 2 or 3 and then they get cut. And then we got losers on Dana White Contender Series, which just means they just don't even make it to the UFC. But without further ado, we're going to break down the first guy, which I think you guys can see on the list, which is Jeffrey Epstein. Yeah, so we're up to a great start here. Now I'm going to put Jeffrey Epstein. Now, this is going to be a hot take, but you got to realize, all right. So when I say these guys are still evil, so we're going to just say that Jeffrey Epstein still got all his connections and stuff like that. He's going ranked level, all right. Now you're going to call me crazy here. Why would Jeff Epstein be ranked? I don't think he's like a fighter. I don't think he's... I mean, there it's... No, that's Bill Clinton. That was Bill Clinton who was the one who was doing their hand like that in the photo. But you got to realize, if he's got all these connections, he can blackmail anyone. He's definitely got some blackmail material and some pretty high, powerful, probably some good scrappers. So he'd probably have some really good training partners to have. He'd also probably have, the best people you would want to train with. And he had his own island. I'm just saying, he had his own island. So he would have had the best people to train with. He would have had the best facilities, like Ilia Topuria. I'm not saying Ilia Topuria is like Epstein, all right? Let me just say that. But he's got his own facility, great training partners, has money. Epstein would have been like Jake Paul with the money, the money of Jake Paul. But then he would have had the facilities and, and the training partners of an Ilia Topuria. Like that to me says that he would probably be ranked level. Now, on the other end, I have seen people who knew him say he was a fucking idiot. He was generally dumb as rocks. So I don't think I can put him in the championship because I think he would probably have a low fight IQ. But I could see him getting ranked. He'd also have some, ties to, the matchmakers. He'd probably have some dirt on the matchmakers. They'll give him some favorable matchmaking. They'd give him, a Paddy Pimblett type rise, I think. So I would say he probably would be in the ranked level, Maybe then he goes on a journeyman run, but he would already have been ranked. So he probably would have, got to the rankings, and then he probably gets absolutely dusted up in the rank level because I don't think he's a fighter, I don't think he'd be an amazing fighter. I just think that because of his connections and stuff like that, I do just think that he would be able to find himself in the rankings. He would have the perfect training partners, the perfect facilities, and then you're telling me he's got the fucking matchmakers. We don't want to annoy Jeff. I'm putting him ranked. Then moving on up, we have Joseph Stalin. Now, Joseph Stalin, if you've seen the young Joseph Stalin, it looks like Ilia Topuria. He's Georgian. Ethnically, he's Georgian. He used to be a gangster. He was a gangster. Before he became the Soviet leader, he was actually robbing banks. I'm putting him in championship. I think that Joseph Stalin would be a UFC champion in a different lifetime. I am certain there is some connection between him and Ilia Topuria, because I don't know if you guys have seen the young Joseph Stalin, but he does look very, very similar to one Ilia Topuria. So I'm putting him 100%. I'm putting Joseph Stalin's champion. Soviet Union was also the inventors of Sambo. I'm sure he had a judoka background or something like that. And the Georgians, man, they're just built differently. I know Merab Dvalishvili lost recently, but they are, very, very good fighters. I mean, there's Ilia Topuria, Merab Dvalishvili. They've had a lot of ranked fighters. There's some good prospects out there. They got Alexander Topuria as well. I mean, I don't rate Roman Dolidze too highly, but he is ranked at middleweight. Georgians, for their population, they are built quite differently. And I think Joseph Stalin... as much as he's a monster and he's a heinous person, we're being objective here. I think that Joseph Stalin probably would have been a UFC champion if he was in a different lifetime. Then we got John Wayne Gacy. I'm gonna put him in the losers on Dana White Contender Series category. He's just a pussy. He took on The thing about John Wayne Gacy is he only took little boys. He never tested himself against like grown men because he knew he was a bitch. I think he used to get beat by his father. I don't even think he gets past the NY Contender Series, to be honest. He'd be jiu-jitsu based because I think he was a strangler, right? So he would be one-dimensional. I don't think he would have any striking. I think he'd get absolutely toasted up, especially like he's a heavyweight. He'd gas out and get chinned on Dana White Contender Series out cold, I think. So we're going to put him in the losers on Dana White Contender Series. Then we've got Pol Pot, who was the Cambodian leader. This guy is dumb as rocks. I'm just going to put this out there. This guy, Pol Pot, he went to France he went and studied in France, I'm pretty sure, Paris. And, I mean, maybe you could say he's smart in there. Now I'm thinking about it because he did France after all. But Pol Pot went in, he went, I was about to say he went and trained. He went and studied in France. And then he was like, it's a good idea. I'm going to go back and I'm going to turn my country into a rural dictatorship. I'm going to absolutely decimate the urban areas. And I'm just going to turn this into a rural country, which was a very stupid economic mistake. I know he was a communist, so obviously his aim was towards a cashless society, but it was just very dumb. It's very stupid. So I'm going to put him in a journeyman. I don't think he would have a very high IQ. I think he'd probably have very dumb fight IQ. He'd make the worst game plans possible. And yeah, I just think he'd get smoked, to be honest. We're going to put him in the smoked, we're going to put him in the journeyman category though. No, you know what? Cut within a year. You know what? He was very dumb. He was very stupid. I'm going to put him, he gets cut within a year, in my opinion. And then moving up, I don't know if many people know who this guy is, but this guy's name is Lazar Kaganovich. This gentleman here, I shouldn't even be calling him a gentleman. This guy here, this guy his politics led to the Soviet Holodomor, which I don't know if many people know what that is, but essentially it was the forced famine of Ukrainians in the Soviet Union. This fucking guy, he killed like many Ukrainians, like 35% of the population, something like that. Yeah, this guy is a piece of shit. I'm just gonna put that out there. The fact that he had to take them out with famine is very cowardly. I'm going to put him on losers on Dana White Contender Series. Truly evil, despicable human being that not many people know about, but this guy is generally pure evil. And he lived till the 90s. This guy actually lived for a very long time, and never faced consequences for his crimes. Then we got Ted Bundy. I'm going to put Ted Bundy would have been a star, right? Let's just put this out there. He was apparently very charismatic. He was a good-looking guy, apparently. The women loved him. They could trust in him. He would have been a star. They would have built him the right way, probably. I think the UFC would have gave him some Paddy Pimblett type matchmaking, to be honest. I think they would have, because they would have seen him as he's very marketable. So I'm going to put him in the ranked category. I think Ted Bundy, I think he would have been able to, get the perfect matchmaking. Maybe if say there's hypothetically there was a female matchmaker, he would have risked her up a little bit and be yeah, maybe give this easier matchup, this more attainable matchup. Fight style wise, he was also a choker, and I mean he at least compared to John Wayne Gacy, I think his victims were at least adults, but they were women, so that's still very cowardly. But I'll put him in the ranks because I think Ted Bundy in a different life, he wasn't a serial killer. I think he probably would have been very charismatic. Well, he was very charismatic already. I think he would have probably been a UFC star in a different lifestyle. Different lifestyle, different world, different timeline. I think he would have been in the UFC. If he was in the UFC, I think he would have been able to get the good matchmaking. Then we got Robert Mabugdi. Oh, man, I'm so bad at pronouncing his name. He's the leader of Zimbabwe. He took over during the Rhodesian Bush War, and then he just decided to I don't even know if I should say the word, but he ended up taking out a bunch of his own people, and then also taking away the farmland from the white people who lived there, which then ended up ruining everything for Zimbabwe when it came to feeding the population. The economy then went to shit, and the conditions went to third world level. So I'm going to put him in journeyman. He was a fighter. You got to realize he did win in that war. I mean, it was more of a case of them retreating because they were literally taking everybody out. But you got to realize this guy probably wouldn't quit. He probably wouldn't have quit. He probably would have kept moving forward. So I think it would have been journeyman. I think he would have taken a lot of losses, but he would have just kept coming back. And also, you got to realize he's from the same country as Blood Diamond and Femba Garimbo. So that's the level of talent we're probably looking at. So he probably wouldn't win like a journeyman. I'd say he'd be more of a Femba Garimbo than he would be a Blood Diamond, though. That's what I'd say about him. And then we got Idi Amin, who was the leader of Uganda. This guy was crazy. This guy was an insane person. Yeah, he did. He'd laugh like that. He'd have a very, I think he would honestly, with pure aura alone, I think he would put fear into his opponents in the face-off. So I'm going to put him in journeyman. He did have like some intensity about him where you'd just be like a bit worried. You'd just be a bit worried, the face-offs. You'd probably laugh a little bit, and you wouldn't know. You didn't know. Like, even if the matchup for him would seem like a bad one, I feel like you'd be able to get in his opponent's head with that heckling laugh. To be honest. So I'm going to put Idi Amin then, and then moving on up, we got Benjamin Netanyahu. Now, this may be a controversial one here, but I'm going to put him in the evil category. And I'm going to put him as a journeyman, to be honest. I think he's a journeyman level guy. The thing about him is I would put him cut within a year, but I think they would probably, I think he would build up a lot of experience before he gets into the UFC, probably. And then this is what I'd say. I'd say Benjamin Netanyahu would probably be like sort of like a Christian Rodriguez type guy in the UFC. I think he'd be a guy he'd beat the young up and comers who aren't experienced, beating on like the inexperienced. But then I think the veterans, the guys who have a lot more skill, or not even just more experience, I think they would butcher him and beat him up. So I'd put him in journeyman, but honestly, the cut within a year category could also be there if they don't give him any like young up and comers. But we know how this guy works. He likes his opponents to be young and inexperienced. So that's why I put him in the journeyman category here, because I think he would probably beat on some prospects. Then we've got Mao Zedong, who was the leader of Red China. He was the first supreme leader of China. I'm going to put Mao Zedong in. I'm going to put him also in the journeyman, because you're going to realize this guy was pretty obese. Like, he was pretty overweight and he was pretty short. So he probably would, I'll probably even put him in cut within a year category, to be honest. That might be a hot take, but I just think because he'd be so small, short, obese, I think he would just get slept. I don't really see how he would have much success as a heavyweight. Even if he went down to light heavyweight, I don't think he was like an athletic specimen by any means. So just in his weight class, I just don't think it would really, like, you don't really see many East Asian heavyweights either. And I just don't think Mao Zedong would really be like an athlete. Like, maybe he'd have a chin, because Chinese fighters do typically seem to have pretty good chins. But I'm going to put Mao Zedong in the cut within a year category. I think that's a fair one to have. And then we've got Saddam Hussein. I'm going to put where do I put Saddam Hussein? He was very good at hiding. He was a very good hider. But I don't think that really, don't think that's really the best attribute when it comes to MMA. So I'll probably put him as journeyman. He was tough. He hung on to control for a very long time. So I feel like if he really put his mind to it, I think he could have really been a force in mixed martial arts. Then we've got Diddy. I'm gonna put Diddy in the losers on Dana White Contender Series category. But he would be very oily in his take. He'd be very slippery, actually. Now that I'm thinking about it, he'd be very slippery against his opponents. I think he'd have generally very good takedown defense, probably, because he'd just, even like submissions, he'd probably be able to slip his way out of it. So it's actually very interesting now that I'm thinking about Diddy as like as a prospect. Like, I'm just looking objectively here. He was a small guy, but he probably would have been like a featherweight, a bantamweight. He wasn't like a very tall guy. He wasn't like a heavy guy, I don't think. If he was like a lightweight, he could actually be like, he could probably have like, give some tough fights to people with his slipperiness, with the baby oil. I don't know. I'm 50-50 here. Do we give Diddy the journeyman, or do we give him the cut within a year category? I'm not sure. We're gonna go journeyman though. We're gonna go journeyman. Then we got Kim Jong-un. I'm gonna put Kim Jong-un in the cut within a year category. Same thing really as Mao Zedong. He's just fat. He's short. He'd be a heavyweight, but he would just get smoked, I think. He would probably have no reach. He'd probably have like a short reach. He's a very small guy, like when it comes to his height and reach. Wouldn't have like I don't think he'd be super athletic. And I feel like he would have like a very padded record, to be honest. Like, honestly, I'll probably even go losers on Dana White Contender Series. I don't really know who they would give this guy. I think because he'd be like a case of, well, it's his country. He'd sort of fight these guys who were like, you know, be giving cans to crush, and I think he would go like 6-0, 5-0 against like negative record bums, and then he would go down to like Contender Series and get a reality check when he fights his first real opponent, and he'd get absolutely slept out cold. So I'm going to put Kim Jong-un in the losers on Dana White Contender Series. I think he would be an awful fighter, to be honest. And then we've got Osama bin Laden, 6'4", 155 pounds. It'd be a monster. He's going in the championship category. This guy could have been terrorizing the lightweight division. You know, he could have been. He honestly, like, you give this guy some takedown defense and you teach him how to kick, and with as long as the reach, like he was like 6'4", 6'5", lightweight. Jarlin Turner, you know, he would have been a Jarlin Turner type guy, but I think honestly, we know that this guy, he really if he put his mind to it, he had the money as well. People don't realize about this. He was very rich. His family owned oil companies. He could have had the perfect training facilities. Could have maybe even like bulked up a little bit, maybe gone up to welterweight, or even just like bulked up and like, I think he was like 165 pounds. So he would have had like a 10-pound weight cut. He would have been so like lengthy for the weight class though. And I think, you know, with these like lanky guys, they always seem to have a lot of power. So I'd actually put him in the championship category. Then we've got Dick Cheney. Now, Dick Cheney, he passed away recently, like over a month ago. But I'm still going to put him here because like he did just invade Iraq for no reason. And he was like the catalyst behind that. So we're going to put Dick Cheney in the Cut Win of the Year category. He's sort of like similar to these guys, but I feel like he'd probably, because like, he's an American and like he'd be fighting other blobs. He'd probably build up some experience a lot more. His regional scene would be a lot better than like, you know, Kim Jong-un would be fighting very small guys at heavyweight. I think Dick Cheney would probably be a heavyweight. So yeah, I'd put him in the Cut Within a Year category. And then we've got Charles Manson. He's going in the losers in the Dana White Contender Series. This guy's a pussy. He literally got other people to do his dirty work for him. He's a bitch. He's going in the losers in the Dana White Contender Series. Like, he didn't even do them himself. He got women to do it. He's a manipulative guy, and I wouldn't even put him in like, I think he's charismatic, but I can't put him in like I couldn't see him doing what Ted Bundy did, you know, like it's sort of like the Riz versus harassment thing, especially looking at, you know, Charles, like how he looks in that. Then we got Jeffrey Dahmer. I'm gonna put him in. I'd actually put him in ranked. You know, the thing about him, his victims were other men. That is horrible. Don't get me wrong, but you sort of got to respect it that he's overpowering a lot of these like men. I think he did use like substances to like make them unconscious, but he did also take out some pretty big guys as well. And I'm pretty sure he was more of a guy who used to like. I don't think he used weapons, so I would probably say ranked level. He would probably be a really good grappler. He'd have a good squeeze, so I would put him in the ranked level, to be honest. So yeah, I'm putting Dahmer ranked. I think he would be ranked if he literally put his mind to something else. He probably would have been ranked. Plus, you got to imagine like he would probably have been like a very like personality wise. He'd probably been a real calm, quiet guy. People would have really underestimated him. I feel like. So I'm gonna put him ranked. I generally think he probably would have been ranked. Then we got Nick Reiner. Now Nick Reiner, this guy's going in the losers on Dana White Contender Series. I don't know if you guys seen, but he's the son of Rob Reiner, and anybody who does like unalives their own parents is just scum of the earth. Unless you're in an abusive household, which he was not in. If they give you every opportunity to look out for you, you are a bad person, and you're a coward. Like generally, you're an actual coward. You're trying to unalive your parents. People who are not going to want to hurt you. Absolute coward behavior. He's going on losers on Dana White Contender Series. Then we got. I'm just gonna make sure I'm getting this guy's name right. Yes, this guy's name is Baruch Goldstein. This guy was a coward. He committed heinous acts on a bus, I think, and then he ended up succumbing to the crowd, who ended up, unaliving him with their fists. So he's going on losers on Dana White Contender Series. Absolute cowardly act. Doesn't show you're not a man. You don't do that to people. Like that's not like that's the most like obviously you don't do what any of these people have done. I'm just gonna say that right now, just to put that out there. But especially not like that. That's like, that is the most cowardly thing you can do. And he still succumbed to the crowd, like he went out how he was. He was a coward, and they ended up succumbing him while he had a weapon. So I'm just gonna say he'd lose on Dana White Contender Series. He wouldn't beat a single person. The fact he would get there would be from a can crushed record. Then we've got Bertold Wiesner. Now this guy, compared to the other guys, he's not some guy who's committed all these heinous acts. But what he did do, and I think is still generally very evil, is he was anonymous at his wife's sperm clinic, and he donated all of this sperm that belonged to him, and he fathered up to 1,000 children, at least 600, possibly thousands. And you're going to say, well, why is that evil? Well, firstly, he didn't tell people it was his, because you look at this dork. Like he told them, we'll get you the sperm from the most intelligent people. Look at this dork. I wouldn't want, that would be pissed off. And secondly, because he didn't tell people who was the donor and all that sort of stuff, you got to imagine the amount of incest that has probably happened because of this dickhead is probably insane, which is an evil thing. There's probably a nice couple out there who met each other. They probably had a child. It's probably turned out they're the product of him. That's evil. It's disgusting. He's a coward. I'm putting on the losers on Dana White Contender Series, and I'm noticing I have Alex Morono here. Alex Morono, He's terrorized me for years with his fights. I'll never forgive him what he did to Cowboy Cerrone. I remember that's the one time I've ever turned my TV off. It burns me out inside that Alex Morono has a win over Cowboy Cerrone. He is a journeyman level guy. Obviously, this is a little satirical to have Alex Morono here, but he's going on the journeyman. I don't want anyone to think that I'm saying there's any evil allegations about him. It's just generally a joke. So I'm going to have Alex Morono on the journeyman category. And then we've got the son of Sam. This guy he believed a dog. He believed the dog told him to commit these acts. Imagine if the dog told him to become a UFC champion. Imagine if he put his mind to it. Imagine the dog was like, Sam, become a UFC champion. Become ranked. Become a UFC fighter. I'd put him in ranked. I think if he had that dog telling him, instead of committing these heinous acts, they told him to go in there and commit some knockouts and get some performance bonuses, I think he'd be ranked. I think he had the motivation to do it. That dog tells him something else. Maybe honestly could have been in champion, but I just don't. I don't know. Man, do I put him in champion? I mean, maybe just plot armor wise, if the dog told him to do it, maybe he could have achieved it. But anyway, this is my tier list. That is it. I'm not sure how long this went for. But yeah, this is how I would have it. These are evil people as UFC fighters. Let me know what you guys think of the tier list. Yeah, this is probably one of the most unhinged things I've done on my YouTube channel. But I'm falling off a little bit. So I'm just not caring anymore. This is either going to kill or break. It's going to make or break my channel. And I'm at this point where I really want this thing to work out. So I'm just going to make content like this. If you guys like it, I will. If not, then so be it. But this is what I thought I would do. Let me know what you guys think. Yeah, how would you guys rank the list? Is there any changes you guys would have? And if you guys want, I can do a follow-up list. I can definitely do a follow-up list. So let me know if you guys want to see me do something like this again. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Shout out to the members Todd and M. Become a member today. It really helps me a lot. And I'll see you guys next time. Put on notifications, subscribe. Goodbye, adios. And let me know what you guys think of the tier video. Goodbye.